We hear it all the time, right? We're living in this age of data. But what does that actually mean? It's so easy to think of data as some kind of magic wand that just, poof, gives us all the answers. But the truth? It's way more interesting than that. Data isn't magic at all. It's detective work. It's about sniffing out clues, chasing down leads, and solving a mystery. So let's get started on our first case.
To really get what I'm talking about, let's take on a case. Picture your favorite local ice cream shop. The one with the absolute best mint chocolate chip. Well, it's in trouble. The online ratings are tanking, and the owner has no idea why. This isn't just a business problem, right? It's a full-blown mystery. And the only tool we have to solve it is the data.
Jack Dorsey, the guy who founded Twitter, he really hit the nail on the head with this one. Every single sale, every customer review, every person that walks through that shop store, it all creates a little data point. But on their own, these are just random facts. They're basically meaningless noise. The real magic happens when a detective or, a data analyst steps in to find the story hidden inside, to add that crucial interpretation. Okay, so where does a data detective even start? Well, the very first step is to take all that raw, messy information, all those random facts, and turn them into organized, usable clues. This is the moment we go from just having a pile of data to having actual evidence. And the first tool in our detective kit is something called a metric. A metric is just a fancy way of saying or organizing raw facts into something we can actually measure. For our ice cream shop, that could be the average star rating or the daily revenue, or even how many scoops of each flavor get sold. It's how we start to see patterns emerge from all the chaos. All right, so we've got our clues organized into metrics. Now our investigation can get a lot more focused. See, it's not enough to know what is happening. We have to figure out why it's happening. And to do that, we need to look at two totally different kinds of evidence. First up, you've got your quantitative data. Think numbers. This stuff is objective, it's measurable, it tells us the what and the how many. But then you've got qualitative data. This is the story, the context, the feeling behind the numbers. It's explanatory and it gives us that all-important why. Any good detective will tell you, one is pretty much useless without the other. You need both to crack the case. So the ice cream shop owner, she rolls up her sleeves and starts digging. She analyzes the text from all the recent bad reviews. And she finds a hard number, a solid quantitative clue. The word frustrated pops up in 17 different negative reviews. 17! That's our what? It's a pattern, it's a lead. But it doesn't tell us the whole story, does it? And this is the aha moment. By actually reading those 17 reviews, she uncovers the why. Customers are frustrated because their favorite flavors are always sold out by the time they get there in the evening. See? The quantitative data pointed her in the right direction, but it was the qualitative data that really cracked the case. Now, finally, she's a problem she can actually fix. So our shop owner has her evidence. She knows the what, and she knows the why. Case closed, right? Well, not quite. Now comes the really important part, turning those clues into action. And that usually comes down to two different ways of thinking. So on one hand, you have a purely data-driven approach. This is where you let the facts dictate your strategy. If the data says order more mint chip, you order more mint chip. Simple. It's direct, but it can be kind of limited by what you've measured. On the other hand, you have a data-inspired approach. This is where you use the data as a starting point, but you also mix in your experience, your gut feeling, and the bigger context. So maybe she doesn't just order more ice cream, maybe she also introduces a flavor of the day to help manage her stock better. To really see why this difference matters so much, let's look at one of the most famous data failures in history. Back in 1985, Coca-Cola had a huge problem. Pepsi was eating their lunch. So they did their homework. They ran 200,000 blind taste tests. The quantitative data was just overwhelming. People loved the taste of a new formula, new Coke, way more than the original, and even more than Pepsi. So based on this seemingly flawless mountain of data, they made a massive, data-driven decision. They completely replaced the classic formula. And the result? An absolute total disaster. The public was furious. The company lost tens of millions of dollars. I mean, what went wrong? The numbers were crystal clear, right? Well, here's the twist. The data wasn't wrong. It was just incomplete. Those taste tests measured flavor,
but they completely missed the powerful qualitative data, that emotional connection, the nostalgia that people had for the original Coke brand. They had the what, people like the taste, but they completely ignored the why. It was a classic case of being data-driven right off a cliff because they were missing a huge clue. You know, having the answer isn't enough. A good detective has to present their case in a way that convinces everyone else. So, back at the ice cream shop, the owner needs to convince her partner to spend more money on inventory. How does she make her argument? Well, one option is a report. Think of a report like a photograph. It's a snapshot in time. It's a static collection of data from the past, usually delivered every week or month. It's organized, it's straightforward, and it's great for showing what has already happened. For instance, she could show her partner a simple report that looks something like this table. It's a clean summary, it's easy to read, it gets the point across. But it's static, it's frozen in time. It only shows what's already done, not what's happening right this second. Now, for a more dynamic view, she could use a dashboard. A dashboard isn't a snapshot of the past, it's more like a live video feed of the present. It's a live-in tool that monitors data as it comes in real time. And this is the real game changer. Unlike a static report, a dashboard is interactive. Her partner could click around, filter by the day of the week, or look at just one flavor and see the trends happening live. It's a really powerful way to not just present your findings, but to let other people explore the clues for themselves. Okay, so let's zoom out a bit. This whole process, finding clues, analyzing the what and the why, telling the story, it scales up. Big time. It isn't just for small businesses. The exact same principles of data detective work are used to solve some of the most complex problems in the entire world. It's kind of wild when you think about it, but it's the same fundamental logic. Whether you're trying to figure out inventory for one little ice cream shop, or you're analyzing global consumer trends at a giant like PepsiCo, or you're a NASA engineer trying to guide a spacecraft to Mars, it all comes down to asking the right questions and interpreting the clues correctly. But as you can imagine, as the stakes get higher, the cost of getting it wrong gets a lot higher too. In 1999, NASA lost its $125 million Mars Climate Orbiter. And it wasn't because of bad data. The data was perfect. The spacecraft literally burned up in the Martian atmosphere because one engineering team used the metric system for their calculations and another team used the imperial system, a simple unit mix-up. And that story just perfectly nails the most important takeaway of all this. Data is an incredibly powerful tool, but it is not infallible. Even with perfect data, our interpretation of it can be flawed. At the end of the day, the numbers don't make decisions, people do. The detective, the analyst, the business owner is the one whose interpretation turns raw data into either a brilliant solution or a very expensive mistake. So the next time you look at a chart or see a statistic, don't just see the number. Try to look for the story behind it. Every click we make, every product we buy, every review we leave, it's all a clue in some much larger mystery. So the question is, what story is your data telling you, and are you listening closely enough to hear it?